Hey everyone, I have an update for you all regarding my recent protest that I did in Outback Jacks and Old Shanghai in Northbridge in Perth City. Now, the first update is in regards to some serious threats that the State Security Investigation Group were looking into, and the second one is a barring notice that I've received, which means I am banned from every liquor licensed premises in Western Australia. So I'll get into the threats first. So last week I received a call from the State Security Police. So they are the Anti-Terrorism Police. And this officer told me that they were looking into some threats and were taking these threats very seriously, as this person was basically sending me a death threat indirectly. Now, at that point in time, I had no idea about this post and I haven't even seen it yet for myself. It was a post about a Perth Now article regarding my Outback Jacks protest. I still don't know exactly what this person said, but I did write some notes that the officer told me that they'd said, and it was along the lines of them saying towards me that they would gut this little slut, and something about setting off a time bomb for my next protest. And because I did the protest in a steakhouse, they made some comments about steak knives and how they would come in handy when I was protesting there. So I actually got a call from the police this morning when I was at the gym. They had just tried to catch me at home, and I told them that they can either wait for me or they can come and meet me at the gym and I'll have a chat to them, because they wanted to give me some updates on the process of investigating these death threats. So they came to the gym and I had a discussion with them. They were two very nice officers for the State Security Investigation Group, and they basically told me that they'd finally found out that that person who'd made those threats was in the US, so they obviously don't deem that as a concern. Obviously just a threat made online and there's nothing else that that person can do. So they sort of told me that, yeah, if I ever feel like my life is threatened, to always directly contact the police and they'll act on that. But the thing is, as I've mentioned in the past, this has been happening to me for well over 2 years now. And I remember the very first time I went into the police station to express my serious concerns of receiving death threats and seeing my workplace and my home address leaked. I think it was mostly on TikTok at that point in time, but on Facebook as well. I was victim blamed, and the police officer was very condescending towards me. He knew who I was and he said, well, you put this on yourself, don't you? And he told me that they would only be able to investigate if I gave them my phone, which later I found out wasn't even true, because I could have just uploaded all the evidence onto their database without actually giving them my phone. And it would have been as easy as that, and obviously putting in a statement as well. So yeah, it's all over the place. So yeah, basically they told me that unfortunately just a comment made online isn't enough to be considered as a threat, in terms of even if that person were threatening someone else's life or making disgusting, derogatory, threatening, whatever, abusive comments, it's not enough. It has to be more repetitive, and it has to be, showing signs that they're actually going to act on it, which is nearly impossible with our online world today. But anyway, that's basically what they told me. So during this exact same visit that happened this morning, these state security officers also told me that they'd been told by the Liquor Control Act to hand me some forms. So this is a barring notice, and it is a result of my Outback Jacks and Old Shanghai protest in Northbridge. This is the third time I've actually had a barring notice from liquor licensed premises in Western Australia. So the first time was in the year 2020, when I did one of the very first disruptive protests that I'd done as a solo protest, and that was when I ran onto the football field of Optus Stadium during a women's AFL match. So I actually received a 6-month liquor ban for that disruption, and that is because Optus Stadium sell liquor. The police officer this morning said it's a very draconian kind of law and act. The act itself was actually written in 1988. So that really goes to show how fucking backwards Western Australia is in everything. Like, every part of the legislation, from my personal experiences, just seems so backwards, even in terms of being charged disorderly conduct on 2 occasions purely for being a topless woman. Anyway, the second time I received the barring notice was actually last year in May. And that was after a disruption I did inside Bathers Beach House. So that's a restaurant. And that protest was about SEASPIRACY. And again, just doing my thing, exercising my right to freedom of speech, speaking up for animals whilst people are devouring on the murdered bodies of individuals. I'm the one that was hit with a liquor ban for 6 months. So the first 2 ones I had were a liquor ban from every liquor license premises in Western Australia for a period of 6 months. This time I'm banned for 9 months, so they've upped it up a little bit. So I'll just read out the paperwork as what they've said in this notice to me. And it says, as a delegated officer for the Commissioner of Police, I have had evidence presented to me in relation to incidents that occurred on the 4th of June 2022 at licensed premises, namely Outback Jack's, Northbridge and Old Shanghai, Northbridge, where it is alleged Natasha Jane Peterson committed the offence of disorderly conduct and refused to leave licensed premises when required to do so. Pursuant to Section 115AA 2 of the Liquor Control Act 1988, I believe on reasonable grounds that Natasha Jane Peterson contravened a provision of written law on a licensed premises. The Commissioner of Police hereby gives notice that Natasha Jane Peterson is barred from entering specified licensed premises within Western Australia. This notice comes into effect from the day this notice is served until it expires on the 4th of March 2023. For the purposes of this notice, the particular specified class or classes of licensed premises are all the following licensed classes within Western Australia issued under the Liquor Control Act 1988. All hotel licensed issued under Section 41. So that includes hotels, taverns, all small bar licenses, all nightclubs, casinos, liquor stores, club licensed places, restaurants with licenses, producers licenses, no idea what that is, wholesalers licenses, so yeah, like things like supermarkets that sell alcohol, I can't go into. Basically, everywhere that has a liquor license, I won't be able to go into for 9 months. It says if I don't obey this notice, like the barring notice, I can receive a penalty of $10,000. Then it just finishes off saying that I can lodge an application if I pay a fee to actually dispute this barring notice, and I have to do that within 1 month of receiving the notice. So yeah, that's it pretty much. So from my understanding, obviously this is a barring notice, and I believe it's designed for people who are acting drunk and disorderly and, you know, are threatening and or abusive inside liquor licensed premises, and that's to try and stop people like that. And I believe it's just being used against activists in an attempt to silence us. And this certainly isn't going to stop me. If I want to protest in a liquor licensed area, I'm just going to head over east and do a protest over there. And I certainly will be appealing this barring notice because it is very unjust. And I believe everyone has the right to exercise freedom of speech in a non-violent manner, which is exactly what I do. I'm a non-violent activist, and I'm trying to stop the oppression, rape, enslavement, torture, abuse, and murder of non-human animals. What will actually be interesting to find out is if the two males, well actually there were more, but the two main males who assaulted me in Outback Jacks and in Old Shanghai, I do wonder if they'll be receiving a barring notice too for their disorderly conduct for assaulting a young woman who's just trying to speak out about animal abuse and murder. Nothing's going to stop me, and yeah, it's super easy for me to just go over east and do a protest because I'm only banned in Western Australia, and I can obviously continue my protesting in places where they don't have a liquor license. I will never stop, and yeah, I'll just take a few days over in Melbourne, Queensland, wherever, and do a protest there. So as an animal rights activist, I faced a lot of resistance from obviously the public, but within the system as well. As I said, this is my third barring notice. I've been banned from supermarkets in the past and other individual businesses, but that obviously hasn't stopped me from speaking up. I will always find a way to speak up for non-human animals who are facing severe violence and murder, and I'll never stop speaking up until the animal holocaust ends. Make sure you watch Dominion to see the truth, and keep fighting for the animals.